Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 10 Points Podcast. I am Ash,
I'm Nicholas.
and we're just two nerdy boys who want to talk about Highlander because we love it.
Yeah,
That's
it's
that's really the short
honestly
version.
the best format.
Yeah. So this is a Canadian Highlander podcast, though I'm sure we'll talk about some other things along the way. But we play this format a whole heck of a lot, and we just really like to share it with other people and get out the good word.
Yeah, if we can share this format with others, then that's what we would like to do.
So before we start talking about the format, I want to talk a little bit about ourselves and introduce ourselves. So I've been playing Magic for, I think it's been like 7 years now, which I guess means you've been playing for 5 or 6.
Yeah, probably about 5,
Okay,
I
yeah,
think.
So I started playing in high school when my brother-in-law, at the time, not my brother-in-law, he was like, "Hey, I have this game I want you to try," and I was like, "Okay." I didn't have anything else going on. And turns out Magic the Gathering is a pretty cool thing.
Yeah,
Um,
and I learned when actually Ash here taught me at a
I
summer camp.
I really kind of forced you into it, and then
Yeah,
you realize that financial stability is not a thing you needed in life.
exactly.
So a little more about us. We are both L1 judges, though admittedly most of that time has been spent during COVID and have not been judging comp rel events. I mostly just do like Friday Night Magics and stuff, so nothing too
Un-
spicy.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, it is what it is. So how long have you been playing Highlander, Nick?
I've been playing Highlander for probably about almost like a little over 2 years now, probably.
Yeah, that sounds about
Um,
right.
yeah,
I got started in it was late 2017, I want to say it was. And then I came to you and I was like, "Hey, I found this awesome new format where we get to play all the cards that we have that aren't allowed to that aren't good in modern or anything." And you were
yeah.
like, "Okay."
Honestly, I was a little skeptical at first, but man, this format is.
Well, at the time you had a very bad mono green stompy deck.
Yes, I did.
So, anyway, then not too long after that, I got talking to our LGS, and we got Highlander events consistently firing from pretty much then until now, with the break in the middle there for COVID reasons, obviously. I say consistently. At first, it wasn't the most consistent. We had trouble getting enough people to start. Once we did, it kind of took off, I think.
Yeah, I mean, like now we're getting consistently like at least 8, usually more,
Yeah,
between like 8 and probably
8 to 12.
15.
Yeah,
Yeah.
on average.
Uh,
So I know some of you are wondering, okay, you keep talking about this format. What's so special about it? Well, let us give you a little bit of the rundown about it. So it is called Canadian Highlander. For a long time, nobody really knew what it was, but it's become a little more popular in the last couple years due to the work that Loading Ready Run has been doing with it. They have a podcast as well called North 100.
highly recommend checking it out.
Oh yeah, it's great. It's a great resource if you want to learn more about the format as well. This format is a 100 card singleton format, and it is vintage legal. So, well, almost vintage. It's a little more than vintage legal.
Everything is the vintage ban list, except for one of the recent inclusions of Loris is still legal in Canadian Highlander.
Exactly. Yeah. So there's no Shahrazad's, no Chaos Orbs, no cards that reference anting, but no silver border cards, of course. But any like real actual Magic card, including Luris, they're all legal, including the Power 9. So there's no ban list whatsoever in this format.
Are you
No.
trying to indoctrinate people into Highlander format?
Oh, Steve, we're recording. How did you even
Wait,
get
what
in here?
happened?
All right, hey, sorry about that. We seem to have had a slight malfunction with Discord, and another one of the moderators from the server was able to get into the voice chat, even though we had a maximum of 2 people.
Yeah.
But don't mind him. Where was I?
We were addressing the ban list.
Ah, yes. So there's no ban list in Canadian Highlander. There is, however, a point system. So instead of cards being banned, they are given a point value, and you can have 10 points worth of these cards in your deck. So right now, I think the points list has about 35 or 40 cards on it, maybe a little more. But
Yeah, that sounds right.
yeah. So what do you want to say? Kind of what types of cards are usually on the points list?
Yeah, so generally it's tutors, fast mana, and combo pieces, and just general broken cards. Some examples are Demonic Tutor is 4 points. All of the Moxen are
The
3.
original Moxen.
Yeah, the original Moxen are 3 points each. Combo pieces such as Time Vault, I believe is 6 points now.
I think it's
No, I
7.
think it's gone up to 7. Yeah,
Yeah,
no.
Flash is 6 points. Actually, Flash might be
Yes.
5. Either way, that's another combo piece.
Yes. And then like Dig Through Time is 1 point.
Yeah, there's a lot of cards like that, like Dig Through Time and Strip Mine, Price of Progress, they're just like cards that were kind of too good to be left unchecked because they went into too many different things and were performing too well. Similar to like Ancestral Recall and True Name Nemesis, those were given point values just because like they're not a combo piece, they're not fast mana or a tutor, but they're just you couldn't leave them alone.
They're just very good.
Right. And those point values are usually a little bit lower than some of the other ones. So now, often when we get to this point in explaining the format, a lot of people have kind of already have some preconceived misconceptions about the format. The most pressing ones is usually, oh, well, this format seems way too expensive. I couldn't afford to play it. We are here to tell you that is not the case.
Yes. While the format can be very expensive, there are many, many very good decks that you can build for probably just from what you already have in your collection.
Exactly. So I play a lot of control type decks, and when I started the format, I looked at my modern Esper midrange, Esper control deck, and said, okay, well, if I just take one of each of the cards in this, and put some more cantrips in there, buy a counter spell, a balance, well, now all of a sudden I have a pretty presentable deck that I only had to spend, I don't know, $50 on to add to what I already had.
Yeah. Yeah, my first deck, as I think Ash mentioned earlier, was a pretty bad mono green stompy deck, but I literally didn't spend any money on that. I just like took what I had from my collection. But yeah, like my first deck was actually Grixis control, and yeah, it was very cheap.
Yes, I still remember you casting a Braid on my Torrential Gearhulk to deal 3 damage after a bolt.
We don't talk about that. Yeah, but some other examples of fairly cheap decks. Red Deck Wins is probably both the cheapest and one of the best decks in the format right now.
At the very least, it's one of the most consistent.
Oh yeah.
Especially
And then
a lot of stuff has come out just in the last couple years for that deck. There's like Harsh Mentor, Earthshaker, Kenra, what's
Bone
the
Crusher Giant,
Bone Crusher Giant? What's the dinosaur that stops him gaining life?
Rampaging Frostodon.
Yeah, Rampaging Frostodon. Lots of stuff, and most of that stuff is very affordable as well. There are many budget options for this format. Again, if you have pretty much any existing collection, even just a modern or commander collection, you can usually get something together that is quite presentable and fun. That without having to spend an arm and a leg on it. So some other misconceptions about the format are usually the second one people come up with is, well, isn't it just like a turn 2 combo fest all the time? There's, everyone's constantly winning games that fast.
Yeah, because when you hear the words "there's no ban list," you automatically just think, wow, this is just like way too powerful. But the points list, it's such an interesting thing. It does an incredible job of keeping the format balanced. And the cool thing is about the points list is that if one deck is dominating the format or is too powerful, the council can just adjust the points value and it can constantly keep the format balanced.
While also not banning cards out of other players' collections. We should touch on real quick what the council is.
Oh yes.
So in Victoria, where this format originated, they have a council that I think they vote on them like every month to see who's on the council. They basically are the governing body of the format, and they decide the points list. I think it used to coincide with BNR announcements, and now it's just whenever they meet, if they change something, they announce it.
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah, we can link to the points list as well. I want to say, in all of my time playing Highlander, where I've logged, I'm sure over 1,000 games.
Oh yeah.
I don't think I've ever won on turn 2 before, and I've played lots of decks where that is the thing that the deck wants to do.
I
I played
think
Storm recently.
Yeah, I think maybe like once I have won on turn 2, but it's very difficult. Even like it generally will take many more than 2 or 3 turns.
Mm-hmm. Honestly, the decks that kill the fastest are the perfectly fair aggro decks. Those ones
Yeah.
kill way faster than combo, way more consistently, I would say. The way a lot of combo decks seem to work is they just kind of survive for a little bit and then just use their 5 or 6 lands and win.
Yeah.
That's something we can talk about a little bit later. We have some deck techs coming your way. So one other thing a lot of people think when they hear 100 card singleton is, oh well, it's like if you shuffle your commander into your commander deck, then it's a Highlander deck, right? Well, not really. There are a handful of differences. Nick, do you want to kind of elaborate on that?
Yeah, really, it's funny, it's crazy that people always think of Commander when you mention Canlander, because really the fact that it's 100 card singleton is really where the similarities end. The best way that I've heard it described is like constructed cube. I mean, A, there's no Commander. B, it's 1v1, 20 life, usually best of 3, and as we mentioned, the points list and no ban list. So really, the fact that it's 100 card singleton is the only similarity.
Yeah, for sure. I guess the other closest similarity is the card pool is more similar. But if you think about it, in Commander, it's really all about. Commander is more about you have more time to get more mana and do more big splashy things that you have to be focusing on 3 opponents and stuff. Where in Highlander, you're playing 1 versus 1, so whereas cards like Thoughtseize and Lightning Bolts and Mana Leak, those aren't very good in Commander, but those are staples of Highlander because you're playing 1 versus 1 where the game's, the format speed's probably somewhere between Modern and Legacy, so you don't want to be... You don't have time to just, dirtle around and just, play your Sun Titan on 6. That's not usually going to be something that you're seeing in this format compared to Commander.
Yeah, and another thing to mention is that, while Commander is a lot more casual and, more for fun, Canadian Highlander is a competitive format.
Yes.
And, of course, you can play it for fun, but generally it's trying to kill your opponent before they kill you.
In fact, we do play because it's fun.
Oh, yeah.
So one thing that helps a lot of people kind of conceptualize the closest thing people can think to what Highlander is 1 versus 1 CEDH or competitive EDH. Though there are differences where there's a ban list in that, and there's a lot more tutors and stuff in competitive EDH that you get to play in your decks. That's kind of the closest thing to Highlander as far as playstyle, I would say, outside of a really, really good cube deck.
Mm-hmm.
So one other thing, which I don't really have this come up that often when I'm talking to people in person because I usually invite them to come play, but I've heard other people say online and stuff that, oh, well, that format sounds great and I would really like to play it, but I have nobody to play with. What do I do? Well,
yeah.
I can tell you, I was in the same boat, and then I just came to Nicholas and I said, hey, I want you to play this with me. Try it out.
Yeah. This, I'm telling you, once you try this format, you'll be hooked. So if you can just give someone a deck to try out, 9 times out of 10 they will fall in love with the format. And if you don't have a Magic community around you where you can try to get games in person, or of course because of COVID, Magic Online, there's a big community on there that grows every day. So yeah, if you...
I would suggest not... Well, I wouldn't necessarily suggest this, but the people that are going to be more likely to really enjoy this format are people that have been playing Magic for a while, and when you hand them this deck where they get to play their old favorites that just aren't good in Modern anymore, but they can play them here and they're good. Well, that's going to be the kinds of things that make people really, really fall in love with the format. Get to play with the cards they used to love and just can't use anymore effectively. Also, the fact that this format spans the entire breadth of Magic is, well, it's not a great entry format, right? There are definitely better formats for new players, such as Draft or Standard or something, but generally you don't want to be having new players start with Highlander.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Now that being said, we do have one friend that we pretty much just threw in the deep end and started on Highlander, and he's one of our most consistent players now, and he absolutely loves it.
Oh yeah.
I will say he is he's one smart cookie, so I think he's done a pretty good job of grasping everything and remembering all these cards somehow. I'm not really sure how he did it so fast, but
Yeah, he definitely is just getting better and better every week.
Mm-hmm. Not to mention he keeps opening good cards. All right, so I think that's about everything about the format. Explaining the format, right? Anything I missed?
Not that I can think of.
All right, so now we just kind of want to talk a little bit about the different, well, a little sliver of the pie chart of the different kinds of cards in the decks in this format. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some of my favorites, and then Nicholas is going to talk a little bit about some of his, and then we'll give you a couple mini deck techs on. So I guess kind of talking about them is basically that same thing, right? I don't know.
Yeah.
So like I said a little bit earlier, kind of my bread and butter is control. I started off in modern with Esper control, mid-range kind of thing, and then moved to more playing blue-white control a lot of the time. So when I started playing Highlander, I started off with Esper because I had more cards for that. You know, blue-white control had a lot more duplicates than Esper. I had a lot more one-ofs than Esper, so I had less cards I had to buy if I started on Esper. I built a deck that today, like if I try to build up my collection today, I would be like, well, I'm definitely missing some key pieces here, but I would still be comfortable taking to a Thursday night Highlander just to have fun, right? It had all the typical stuff. I guess this was late 2017, so whatever cards weren't out then, I think Ixalan was coming out then, right? So like I had a what's the pirate that takes something? Well, that was not helpful. The pirate that
hostage taker.
Oh yeah, that one. I had a hostage taker. I remember I wanted a hostage taker, but it was like $15 at the time, and I was like, actually, that's fine. I don't need a hostage taker. And then I opened one and was super happy. But
yeah, that card's pretty good.
Yeah, I was playing all sorts of counter spells, although like efficient removal I could, Thoughtseize, Inquisition, Path, swords, all that stuff. And I think I spent like $40 getting like a couple like random quarter stuff, like miscalculation, counterspell was like 75 cents at the time, and then I got like a Council's Judgment and a Gideon Allies in the car, and then I had a full deck, and I was super excited and started playing. So I play a lot of control now. It's one of the decks I play most, but I pretty much just stick to blue-white because, well, if I play black, there's more cards I have to cut from my deck when I build it.
Yeah, that is honestly my biggest problem with the format, is that now that I have such a large toolkit for the format, every time I build a new deck, I have to cut so many cards. Mm-hmm. They're all so good.
It's pretty sad, isn't it?
Yep.
But so blue-white control is one of my babies. Some other kind of decks that I really like are density-based combo decks. There are kind of two types of combo decks in this format. There's the I'm gonna tutor for these two combo pieces kind of combo, like Splinter Twin, or what's more popular now is Thassa's Oracle, Demonic Consultation. I don't like those combos as much. I like the other kind where it's a density-based combo deck, where instead of tutoring for stuff, I just have so many of the kind of cards I want in my deck that I don't need as many tutors. Though, granted, you still play tutors in the artifact decks. Like Paradox Academy is one of the best density combo decks in the format. It's basically like a Paradox Engine, mana rock, bunch of mana, bunch of cards, walking ballista kind of deck. I guess that was really it. That's the whole deck. That's all it does. That deck just plays a lot of artifacts. So you're getting a bunch of mana rocks, and you're usually using Sylvan Scryings and crop rotations to find your Tolarian Academy and make even more mana. Cast some big draw spell to keep going, and just keep casting spells to untap your lands, make a ton of mana, and usually kill them with something once you're doing that. Decks like Eggs is one of my other favorite combo decks in this format. It plays oddly similarly to Paradox while having like half the same cards, but it's another artifact deck. And then there's this Elf Ball combo deck called Craterhoof. It's basically I'm gonna play a bunch of mana dorks and get a Gaia's Cradle, and then I'm gonna cheat in a Craterhoof Behemoth, and then you're dead. And that's another deck I really enjoy. So I like density-based combo decks instead of like A plus B Splinter Twin kind of decks. One of my other favorite decks, the last one I have on my list here. Oh, I lied. I have two on my list. I have so many decks to talk about, Nick. It's called Pattern Rector. It's a lot like the Legacy deck. At least the combo part is anyway, where you're trying to get Academy Rector in play, sacrifice it to something so you can get a Pattern of Rebirth, which when the creature that's on dies, you get to get a what's it called? The big 7-drop that does the thing.
Protean Hulk?
Yeah, Protean Hulk. You get Protean Hulk, and then when that dies, you get to go get a combination of creatures that just kills them. Usually like a Murderous Redcap and Malira or something like that. But I really like that deck because it has a lot of really intricate lines, and you can build it a little more into the combo, or you can play a little more of a mid-range deck with different Abzan color combos in it. But that deck has been one of my all-time favorites. And lastly, one of my favorite types of decks are like the lands mid-range decks. I don't love playing mid-range, though I will play it every now and then. Usually more than playing mid-range, I like playing lands mid-range. So it's just like usually Jund mid-range, playing like Renin 6, Ram out of Excavator, Primeval Titan, Strip Mine, Wasteland, and just like have a lands package in it to just kind of keep my opponent from being able to do much with their lands as I'm over here doing the mid-range thing of killing them. Yeah, those are my favorite kinds of decks. So now I'll give Nicholas a chance to talk about his.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, I play just about everything, as does Ash. We've both played almost every deck in the format.
Well, that's not quite true.
Yeah,
well,
I guess
actually,
not
I
quite
guess,
true, but
I guess as far as like popular, like actually for sure good decks, I think we've probably both hit at least 70%, right?
yeah.
Okay.
We've played a lot of different things. My favorite kinds of decks, I really enjoy mid-range decks, namely like black-green X type decks. So Jund and Sultai are some of my favorite. I enjoy Abzan. I think the thing that I just love about them so much is that they're very versatile in all aspects. So in deck building, it's very easy to build a mid-range deck to beat any particular meta. And then even in gameplay, you are in this like weird deck where you can switch between a control plan and a beatdown plan at the drop of a dime, depending on what you need to do.
Oh, you mean like Tireless Tracker?
Yeah. So it's just like I really enjoy how, even though the decks seem pretty simple on paper, how versatile they are.
Yeah, it's really annoying when
probably
you're playing mid range and you have like a Scavenging Ooze and a like a Tireless Tracker or something like a Tarmogoyf, and I'm just like, all right, Wrath of God, and you're like, all right, Counter Spell, and I'm like, oh, Dispel, and you're like Force of Will, and I'm like, how do you have all this?
Yeah. Yeah, like mid-range is just built for all of your cards to always be good. That's why I enjoy it.
And yet you still play Mana Dorks.
Yeah, you go fast.
Fair.
Probably my favorite deck in the format is it's a creature-based combo deck called 4-color Kiki Pod. Basically, the entire concept of this deck is you're a very creature-dense deck, and I guess kind of your goal is to get Kiki Jiki plus any of the combo pieces that combo with it, such as Felidar Guardian or Pestermite, to make infinite creatures and attack. But like I was saying earlier, the thing I love about this deck is how it can switch between a combo plan and just a creature beatdown plan so well. Because I think that's probably the biggest mistake that people make when playing this deck is that they're so focused on getting the combo together that they will just miss the ability to kill them just by getting all of the powerful creatures in the deck, such as like Luminous Broodmoth, which is a newer card, and just like things like Revelark and
Yeah, you haven't lived until you have a Luminous Broodmoth next to a birthing pod.
Yeah. So I mentioned the Kiki Jiki part of the deck, but the other part of the deck is Birthing Pod, which is one of the and it's the most powerful card in the deck. And usually, if you have a Birthing Pod on the battlefield, you just kill them through a variety of different lines.
Actually,
and then I'd say,
oh, sorry, I didn't
what's
mean to
that?
cut you off there.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say, actually, I just want to point out, you're saying Pod is the most powerful card in the deck. It seems like a good time to highlight how the points list changes, because not that long ago, Pod wasn't the most powerful card in the deck, right?
Oh, yes. So until not very long ago, the deck would usually play a point split of Time Walk, which was at 6, Spellseeker, which was at 1, Pod, which is at 2, and then usually like True Name Nemesis or something, which is also at 1 for a total of 10 points. But recently, Time Walk and Spellseeker have both gone up a point. So Time Walk is now 7 points and Spellseeker is 2. So and that made for a really powerful combo where, without going into too much detail, essentially if you were able to play Spellseeker and had 6 mana left, you could just instantly take infinite turns through a combo of different cards.
That were in the deck that you were tutoring for.
Yeah, that were in the deck. And so that's the really cool thing about the points list, that without banning those cards, you can make it to where if you still want to play Spellseeker and Time Walk in the deck, you can't play Birthing Pod anymore. So now you have to make the decision what you choose to do.
Or how you build the deck. You can build it into a completely different playstyle as well.
Yes.
Anyway, Pod's the most powerful card.
Yes, it is very good. My third favorite type of deck probably is any combo deck that, like Ash was touching on earlier, isn't just like A plus B, such as Time Vault decks where you just get Time Vault plus Voltaic Key to take infinite turns, and like Thassa's Oracle decks where you just use Thassa's Oracle and is it Demonic Consultation?
Yeah, or Tainted
Yeah.
Pact.
Or Tainted Pact to just get rid of your entire library. So I like anything that makes me have to think and look through different lines to find out. So I really enjoy playing like Storm, or the deck that Ash was talking about earlier, Paradox Academy. Any deck that there's just numerous different lines that you have to play through.
Have you ever gotten an opportunity to play Tin Fins?
I have not.
Oh, dude, you should let me build you Tin Fins. You'll like that's right up your alley if you want to play that kind of deck.
Yeah, for sure.
For sure. Did I ever tell you about that time I wanted to go play Modern because I wanted to play Magic and I didn't have a deck, so someone loaned me their Griselbrand deck.
Yes, and you
Okay, listen, what happened was I was very tired. Honestly, I probably shouldn't have even driven there. I was exhausted. And I was just totally out of it. And round 1, I look at my hand. It is like the most beautiful turn 2 kill, like Griselbrand kill. Just like for sure. So I go, all right, land, Faithless Looting. And I look at my hand. I'm like, I cannot figure out what to discard. So I end up discarding like a Tormenting Voice and an extra land or something. And then my opponent thought seizes me and sees the Griselbrand and the Goryo's Vengeance. And he's like, why didn't you discard the Griselbrand? And I'm like, ah, heck. So yeah, don't do that when you play Tin Fins.
Didn't you also end up playing that deck on camera there?
I don't know. That's a good question. Keep talking. I'll go figure out.
Yeah, I think I remember you telling me that because the store that we play at used to stream games during all of the events, and I think I remember you telling me that they had you play that deck on camera, and you made some sort of misplay there too.
Oh, no. I first time played Amulet Titan on camera.
Oh, yeah, that's what it was.
I think I killed myself with a pact in this video.
Yeah.
I actually killed myself with a pact every single time. That yeah, if you guys want to watch me really poorly play a bunch of Modern decks that I've never either I jankily threw together or it's just I've never played before, just look up Ash Houston on YouTube. They're Top Deck Productions. You'll find some videos of me playing Modern bad.
There are some very entertaining videos on there.
I actually assembled. I like put an Ironworks deck together before it was like a thing, and then like by the time I actually got it together and was playing it, it was a thing, and mine was just a bad version of it. It's great. I don't play Modern anymore.
I also don't play Modern anymore.
I think is that everything from you for your decks?
Yeah.
All right. So now we're going to come to our. Wait. We forgot something about Highlander.
And what's that?
Okay, so we were talking about how the format is just, a lot of people think it's too expensive. Like, oh, I can't afford a Yawgmoth's Will or a Force of Will or dual lands. Well, first off, you don't need dual lands nearly as much as you think you do, as long as you're playing a 2 or 3 color deck.
I mean, to be fair, before I owned any dual lands, I was playing 4 color decks.
Oh, I played multiple 5 color decks before I owned dual lands.
Yeah. So, well, your deck will. You won't suffer too much if you're in a 2, even 3 color deck.
Especially if you're playing green or blue.
Yeah. While it will probably hurt you to play a 4 or 5 color deck without dual lands, it is
Yeah.
doable, and you can still put up good results with it.
Yeah. Usually you just want to be proactive trying to kill them. But that's not the
Yeah.
point. The point is, Highlander, we typically allow gold border or collector edition cards.
Yes.
Because basically the philosophy behind it is these are real actual cards that Wizards actually printed. Like, people are still paying decent money for these cards usually. Just, like half or a third of what the black border printing is, and they're not silver border cards or anything that are like not meant to be played in a real game. Like, these are cards that like a gold border Force of Will works the exact same as a black border Force of Will,
Yeah, and just to be clear, this was a rule put in by the council and the Victoria community where the format was created. It's not like a house rule that we have.
Yeah, we did follow suit. I guess we
Yes.
should point out we're not Canadian. We live in America.
Yes, we do.
Yeah. So that's typically various communities typically are totally accepting of gold border and collector's edition cards. For a very long time, I used gold border Force of Will. I actually just got a real one not too long ago because my brother-in-law accidentally had one and he owed me some money. So no, he didn't owe me money. I just traded him a Judge Foil. So
I also just recently got my not gold border Force of Will because instead of him accidentally having one, he accidentally had 2 and traded the other one to me.
He actually accidentally had 4. One of them was in worse condition, and he wanted to keep one.
So basically, what happened was he purchased a collection from someone and was going through it and found 4 Force of Wills.
At the
So when we
very
say
end, too, like the very end of going through the whole all the stacks of cards, that's where he found the Force of Wills. It was poetic almost.
Yeah, very cool.
So anyway, now we're gonna go ahead and move on to our closing segment we'll be having. We're gonna talk about just briefly talk about the decks that we played last week or this week. Nicholas, you were busy this week, so you actually can talk about the deck you played last week. But I'm gonna talk about the deck I played this week just a little bit. So I already talked about it a little bit, but this week I played Blue-White Control. So instead of explaining how Control works, because you know how Control works, I just want to briefly talk about some of the really cool cards you get to play in Highlander that you don't really get to play elsewhere. So some of my favorites that I get to play here that I don't get to play anywhere else are Balance. It's actually a pointed card, 1 and a white. Each player discards cards, sacrifice creatures, and lands down to whoever has the lowest, basically. So it's all even, quote unquote, balanced. So that's one card I don't really get to play anywhere else, and I really, really like playing here. Will Kenrith is a relatively new card. Pretty much any card that came out since I started playing Highlander I consider new, which is probably not correct, but whatever. From Battle Bond, he's just a really, really good way to stop the aggressive decks from doing much to you, and then he eventually puts you in a position where if you get to ultimate him or even minus him once or twice, you're just so far ahead of your opponent that you can usually win the game off of it. And then Will Kenrith is super weird because it has a super secret ability where it has partner with Rowan. Even though pretty much no deck is playing Rowan, actually, Nicholas, I believe you played a Jeskai Super Friends deck and decided Rowan was bad, so you cut it.
Yeah, I did.
But you can still, if you want to, when you play Will, you can still search your library for it and fail to find if you need to shuffle for some reason. So if you brainstormed and you don't want the 2 cards on top, you can just play Will and then shuffle them away just because.
Yeah, it's a really cool little interaction that doesn't come up a whole lot, but
when it does, you feel like the biggest brain player ever.
Yeah.
And then, I had one more card I wanted to talk about. What was it? Oh, yeah. So, now, granted, I have played this card in Modern to little success, but there's this card called Story Circle, which I absolutely love in this format. It is 1 white for an enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, you pick a color. And then you can pay a white to prevent damage from a source of that color. It's like if you're against the mono red deck and you just land Story Circle and just hold up white mana for the rest of the game, you just basically have a white mana counter spell every turn. Because you can prevent damage from spells and creatures.
Yeah,
or even a Chandra if you want to.
It's a card that I always look at it and just think this is bad, and then he always beats me with it.
It's the most beautiful thing in the world. You can actually that one burn spell that has spell mastery for not being able to be countered.
Yeah.
It can just effectively counter that because you can prevent the damage still.
Yeah.
Unless what really sucks is when they just play a Sulphurous Vortex, and then you're like, oh, that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is everything. Like all the cards I want to talk about for now out of that deck. But how about you tell us a little bit about the deck you played last week?
Yeah, so like Ash said, I was actually busy this week, so I wasn't able to attend. But in the previous week, we were actually finishing up. It was the final week of a league that we had been doing for the past 5 weeks. And so I meta'd more than I usually would. And like I was talking about earlier, the thing I love about mid-range decks is how you can build them to beat any meta. And in our current meta, we have a lot of control and like Thassa's Oracle combo decks. So I
which happened to
played,
be the same deck.
yeah. So I played Sultai mid-range. I always say the best way to beat counter spells is with slightly fewer counter spells, because you play your threat, they try to counter it, and you hopefully can counter back to keep it there, and then use your few other counter spells to keep it alive. So I was playing Sultai mid-range, and I kind of hedged against combo decks like Thassa's Oracle, so I was playing more hand attack than you usually would, and slightly few more counter spells. But yeah, it was I did pretty well with it. I played it for 3 weeks in a row and went either 2-1 or 3-1 depending on how many rounds we had every week
Nice.
actually. Yeah.
Do you have any spicy cards that non-Highlander players might not know about for that deck?
I was playing. So I'll go through my point spread for it. In my point spread, I was playing Soul Ring, which I assume everyone probably knows about, and that's actually a 4-point card. I was also playing Demonic Tutor, which is another 4-point card, and then I was playing Mind Twist, which is one that many like modern or standard players probably don't see very often. And it's 1 black and X, and it says target player discards X cards at random, and that's a 1-point card, and that was part of the hedge against combo decks, because if you can make them discard their either their combo pieces or their protection for the combo, you're in a much better position. And then my final point was True Name Nemesis, which, as we covered earlier, is just
The
a
best wall on the
very
points list.
a very good threat. Yeah.
All right, so I think that's about everything from us for today. Let us know if you guys enjoyed. If there are any specific decks you guys know about you want us to talk a little bit about, let us know. And, well, we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.